What's up, primates? I'm ShaneTheSkeptic, and as always, I thank you for tuning into my channel to watch my content. It has definitely been a long-ass time since I have done a live stream, and you know what? There are a couple of reasons of that, and I could, break what some of those reasons down are. Part of that is going to be or that is going to be part of what this live stream is about. I'm also going to be talking about some of my recently more nuanced or more educated or more well-informed views on religion are, how I view Islam differently. Well, what new things I think about it anyway. Um, and what's going on in the Middle East. And yeah, just today's crazy fucking world that we live in with religion. Because we always get told that religion, every religion claims to be of peace that I know of, right? I've never heard of a religion that claims to be non-peaceful. Islam doesn't only claim to be a religion of peace. Christianity, teaches peace, and so does Judaism. And we're told that what religion does is it gives people structure, and I consider this because it's not plausible to me at all that a God exists, but I do consider, is it possible that religion is beneficial, that people are better off with it than without it? That is something I do try to consider sometimes. But then I look at what is said to be the Holy Land, the most religious place in the world, and it's never peaceful there, right? And it just seems like, people try to say like the less religion you have, the worse it is, and they give pretty much the common examples of the Soviet Union and communist China. Those are pretty much, and then oftentimes they try to throw the Nazis in with that, but they do that, so I would say mistakenly, because the Nazi Party wasn't built on atheism in any way, shape, or form, right? And then you have the Soviet Union, which any historians could correct me if I'm wrong. I know there are people that are educated on history that watch this channel that could correct me in the comments if I'm getting this wrong. But I've heard that the Soviet Union, yes, they did embrace atheism and they did want to fight against religion at first, but then they ended up endorsing the Eastern Orthodox Church sometime after that because their initial thing about being anti-religion wasn't conducive to their plan as much as endorsing a church was, which I think is actually kind of a funny twist at the end there, considering the way that argument gets used. I look at places that are religious, and there are some times where I think, okay, some religious people do seem to be very well structured people. Like, I could think of some people like Catholics I know, Muslims I know, who, if I'm thinking of them, they're the type of people that, nothing is out of place in their house, and they're well organized. Now, I'm not saying being organized proves they're God or anything, but I try to question, like, does religion give them something for them to be more organized? And I just still simply don't feel that way very strongly. I do think that religion is heavily influential in culture, and culture is something that I love. So that's something that I feel makes it important for me to study other religions. Is how are you going to understand any country that that is heavily influenced by Catholicism if you don't know anything about Catholicism? If you want to know about Latin America, I think part of understanding the culture of Latinos is you got to understand Catholicism. That's Christianity. People argue about that, but Catholicism is Christianity. That's, you know what, people in the comments and the live chat both, just tell me what you think about that. Is Catholicism a sect of Christianity, or is it not? A denomination, or is it not? Because people try to fight about this because Catholics do put a lot of emphasis on Mary, unlike other Christians. But that doesn't mean that they don't think that the only way through heaven is to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, which is what Christianity is. And they do try to live as much of a Christ-like life as they can, which is what Christianity is. So on all the fundamental things that are what Christianity is, that they agree. So I would say that they're Christians. But it's, this kind of the same thing as people argue with the Abrahamic religions as to whether or not do Christians and Muslims believe in the same God is an interesting debate, because they do both believe in the God of Abraham. So there's this God in this story, and both of them are agreeing that this God in the story is the one that they believe in, that exists. So I would say that they do believe in the same God, but then because of the fact that they disagree on his attributes, you could say one by definition has these attributes. They don't believe in those attributes. Therefore they don't believe in the same thing. Islam. So I'm going to talk about in the Quran. It specifies many times in this book that there is one God only, and it even warns of those who say that God is one in three in one. They warn of that in the Quran. Now, the Quran doesn't predate Christianity, so that's not a prophecy. That's obviously a reference to Christianity rather than a prophecy. But it said repeatedly, and they also say it would be unlike God to have a son. That's something they say, and something that it doesn't say in the Quran that I've heard Muslims say is that when they get to the look at the trees argument, look at the trees, look at the mountains, look at the ocean, they say when I look at a man, mankind is not the kind of thing that could do that. So for you to say Jesus is God and then look at everything around you, knowing Jesus is a man, and say that Jesus did this, that's incoherent to them, right? So it is important to understand that Muslims do not believe that Jesus was God. It is also important to understand that they do believe that Jesus was a prophet. They believe that Muhammad was the main prophet. He's the messenger of Allah, but Jesus is like their, I would say, either number 2 or number 3 prophet. In the Quran, when Jesus is born, he immediately starts speaking. Jesus is born and starts speaking. And that's supposed to be evidence that Mary wasn't a hoe, that Mary didn't just go cheat. That, Jesus is like, well, look at me. I'm a newborn baby and I'm talking. She didn't cheat, but he didn't even claim to be God. I don't know. That's an interesting. If you think I'm wrong, read the fucking Quran. Even no matter what you think, you should read the Quran. I don't think that most people who read the Quran, who are the type of people who study religion, would then become Muslim because of the fact that they read the Quran. But I will tell you, of the Abrahamic religions, which religion do I think is the most convincing? I would say Islam. And I know the least about Judaism, so I should put that into what I'm saying here. But between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, I think that Islam is the most convincing. And most convincing is, I'm only meaning by that it has the highest potential to convince the most people. I don't mean that it's the most convincing to myself. But what I think is that the majority of people could very easily be reached or convinced by what is referred to as stick and carrot reasoning. I shouldn't have to explain what stick and carrot reasoning is, but carrot in the front, stick in the back. You're poking somebody in the back with a stick to hurt them, to get them to go forward, or you're dangling a carrot in front of their face so that they go forward for the reward, right? Heaven is the carrot, hell is the stick. Well, Islam puts a lot of emphasis on hell, and it reminds you on almost every page. The Quran reminds you almost every page that non-believers will go to hell, that there is a fire, that is the abode and therein they shall abide. That is their abode, therein they shall abide. Non-believers go to hell. There's hell. There's a fire in hell. Non-believers will be in fire. Same shit. You're going to read that a lot. And then what I came to realize is that I've heard it. I haven't met anyone that claims to do this, but I've heard that it's common for Muslims to actually memorize the entire Quran. Like I could memorize specific verses from the Bible or something, right? Like we all have a verse where we know word for word what it says. Well, I've heard that a lot of Muslims do that with the entire Quran. Well, I understand after reading it that it's easier than you'd think because of the fact that it repeats the same things so many times. I mean, consider if you're somebody who's read the Bible, the book of Leviticus. Book of Leviticus, and then most people that read the Bible or they start reading it and they stop, and then you ask them where they were, it's Leviticus. Most people stop reading somewhere halfway through Leviticus because that's where it gets boring as fuck and very, very, very repetitive because it's very similar, but the verses are very similar, but there's small differences in them because they're laying out rules, but they're making slight differences in the specifications of the firmament or whatever. So I haven't read Leviticus in fucking forever. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even remember the second half of that book. I got to reread the Torah at least. I don't know if I'll read the whole Bible. I probably will at some point. Still haven't. But when I argued with Muslim apologists, I would be told so often that if I just read the Quran, then I would see. And I've been told so many times, like you haven't even read the Quran. They say that, and if I see them, I see this smug fucking look, and I know they're making it even if I don't see them because you could fucking hear this smarking somebody. You know what I mean? I've talked to people on TikTok Live back when I was doing TikTok, and they're, oh, you haven't even read the Quran. And so, as far as they're concerned, the word of God has been revealed to them. They have seen it, and it exists for everyone to see, but you haven't even seen it. So, as frustrating as that is, there is a part of me that empathizes with that because you should be understanding of the fact that if you thought that God Himself had a written word and you had read it, and you were talking to someone who hadn't even read that, you would have to be like, okay, well, read it and get back to me, right? Well, no one can say that to me anymore. Nobody has that over me anymore. They can ask, oh, well, what does it say in this specific verse? And I'm not going to fucking remember exactly because it's not like I memorized the whole thing myself, right? But there were some things that I made a Facebook post saying that I had read the entire Quran, and there are things people said that part of me wanted to answer, but there's just such a nuanced way of responding to it. And also, it was a little more fun to leave people in the dark and let them wonder if I became a Muslim or not. But people talk about Aisha, and us who criticize Islam, we always bring this up about Aisha. And this is something that I've always felt pretty strongly about when I think about somebody that they're Muslim, and I need to be understanding that they come from a different culture, and I want to coexist with people. I know I have a lot of Muslim friends who are a lot of Muslim coworkers and a few Muslim friends. I know Muslims who are people that I like, and they're not people that I want to hurt my relationship with. So I mean, I just don't fucking bring this up with them. But I think about this and I'm like, so they know that Muhammad married a 6-year-old that he had sex with when she was 9, and they worship this man. I mean, because like it's kind of hard to get past. Like if you're like, oh, that person's a good person, and if you're Muslim and you're listening, please understand that this is our perspective. That person's very polite. That person's very well mannered. Yeah, that person does worship someone who's a child rapist, but apart from that, they're a really good person. That's kind of a hard thing for us who didn't grow up with Islam to ever consider thinking anything about. Well, what Westerners I think should hear is that first of all, Aisha's never named in the Quran. And I'm not about to say that Muhammad didn't do that because he did. And I'm not about to defend that because it is wrong. So if anybody's worried about that, like, let your worries down. Here's what I'm going to say, though. None of Muhammad's wives are ever mentioned by names in the Quran, nor are their ages referred to. Do you see where I'm going with this? Not everybody who follows Islam even knows that. Now, if you get into some of the deeper books about Islam, something like this one here, where it's a compilation of hadiths and you have theologians analyzing them and talking about different things that different prophets said and different, people who knew those prophets, their accounts of the events or whatever. This is where you're going to start seeing the ages. This is where you're going to start seeing the names. This is where you're going to start seeing a lot more of the details. But the same way you know Christians who they haven't read Numbers 31, 17, and 18, where it pretty explicitly gives a commandment towards the Israelites to go rape the children of the Midianites. There are a lot of Christians who are like, yeah, the Bible, blah, blah, blah. And they don't even know that that's in there. Now, granted, when you show them that, they normally don't think too much about it, as they should. But the thing is, if you're gonna still be willing to know and be friends with and be respectful toward people who are Christian and believe that the Bible is the word of God, even though it has, Numbers 31, 17, and 18, then you should have that same attitude toward people who are Muslim. I do think I do very strongly feel that way. And I do think that being empathetic towards somebody else's perspective, especially when they come from a different culture than you do, is a very important part of being just a decent person in the society in which you live. I do think that that's important. But the problem with religion is dogmatic and says that it can't be questioned. And there are a lot of problems with Islam. One is it says so many negative things about non-believers that my Muslim friends, if you're listening, when I read your holy book, I just have to wonder, is this what you think about me? Do I behave the way that your book says that I should be behaving? Because I mean, the reality is there are people at work who I don't even have the heart to tell them I'm not Muslim because they've seen me reading the Quran and I always greet people in whatever language they speak. So if I know that they're Arabic speaking and they're Muslim, I say assalamu alaikum when I see them. They actually there are people that they don't know that I'm not Muslim. And if they ask, I tell them that I'm not. I don't lie to anyone. But in reality, as soon as somebody asks me that, there's a part of me that's like, oh, they're probably going to think very differently of me now. Because if you believe this, and I'm reading what it says about me, I'm a non-believer. I don't believe in Islam. I don't believe in the God of Abraham. And I'm not lying. And I know I'm being intellectually honest. I not only am not convinced he exists, I not only believe he doesn't exist, I know he doesn't exist. I know that God does not exist, and I am willing to take a formal debate. I need to get back into those, by the way. I'm willing to take a debate on that topic. Doesn't exist. Now, Islam is, here's the thing. It's an entire culture. It's not just a religion. And I do like to learn about other people's culture. But one big difference on Islamic culture is hijab culture, let's just say. You all know what I mean when I say that. That might not be the best wording for it, but I got a book that's actually intended to explain this. I'm going to read the back of it to you. Women in Islam is an attractive book of simple compilation of quotations from the Quran and Hadith collections that refer to or address women specifically. It engages the reader in a moment of reflection on the Islamic view of womanhood, her existence as a creation of Allah, her role as a positive stakeholder in building a God-conscious society, and her capacity for attaining proximity with Allah. Beautifully presented, it makes a perfect gift and a valuable addition to every home. And Women in Islam is a book that is intended to help you understand things like why do they segregate the genders, segregate the sexes? Why do they make them wear hijabs? And it's an apologetic book basically. It doesn't use that word, but it tries to give written defenses for why that's the case. And I want to give an example of the kind of defenses that people have because it's nothing but weak arguments. And I'm reading them to gain empathy to know what other people think. Oh, speaking of gaining empathy on what other people think, I want to go back to Aisha and make one more comment. Some people actually don't even believe that Aisha was 8 years old when 8 or 9. I'm sorry. married her when she was 9 years old. They don't believe that. They actually think that she was 18. And they're wrong, but this is the apologetic for why they think that. Some people have argued that the word that was translated for year was actually a word that referred to a period of 2 years. So if you were to say 5, that word, you'd actually be referring to 10 years, right? So if you were referring to a 9-year-old, not year old, 9, that word, old, that person would be 18. And one translation in English that I read for that was the word lunar years. So I've seen it argued that Aisha was 9 lunar years old, and they were saying lunar years, a lunar year is 2 years. So if somebody was 9 lunar years old, they would actually be 18 years old. So actually, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they would say, the Prophet Muhammad waited until she was 18. Now, I don't think that this is a majority view, but I've heard a lot of people defend it. So I do think that it isn't something you should do if you find out somebody's Muslim to immediately bring up Muhammad being a pedophile. It's just you don't know what they think. That you have no way of knowing exactly what their understanding of Muhammad and Aisha's relationship was. You don't know if they don't know anything about the age. You don't know if they think she was 18. Now, I'm not arguing that that's the case because Muhammad was an actual historical figure. So was Aisha. Like this really happened. She was 9. She was 9. And I want to give you an example of the type of argumentation that you see in something like this because okay, people who are Muslim, they don't think that Islam is sexist. You have to understand that because I think some Westerners, they look at Islam and they think that Islam knows it's sexist, but just thinks that sexism like it's just true, I guess. But that's not actually it. If you ask a Muslim, they would actually tell you that men and women just have different places, right? And it's just that the women's places are in the lower places, and they don't really see that connection. But you have an example of verses, and I'm going to read from this book here. It says, so there's a verse from the Quran which talks about inheritance, right? So inheritance from when the parents die. There is a share for men in what their parents and close relatives leave behind. Likewise, there is a share for women in what their parents and close relatives leave behind. The share is decided by Allah, and what is left behind, be it little or much. So that's the first, and I'm going to read, there's another verse following that here, so that's not the end of it. So it's like, okay, so here it's recognizing both men and women as being able to inherit. So it's giving an example of the sexes being equal. That's supposed to be the argument, right? More importantly, to the point that I'm making on this page, it says, O prophet, people ask you the ruling, say, God commands you about the inheritance of him who does not leave behind any hair in direct line. If a man dies childless but has a sister, she will have half the inheritance. If there are 2 sisters, they shall have 2/3 of the inheritance. If there are brothers and sisters, the male shall have the share of 2 females. So literally saying, if you have a male and you have a female, the person who is male should get double what the female gets on the basis of his sex. But that's not sexist because Islam does not place the financial responsibility on women. It is the duty of the father, brother, husband, and son to support a woman. Despite this, she has a share in inheritance as a mother, sister, wife, and daughter. So it's saying, okay, well, we're not putting the responsibility on her. We're going to give you half the money. Oh, well, you don't have responsibility. And it argues that, well, yes, your share is half, but you both get a share. So the criticism of Islam is that it's sexist to say a male should get double what a female gets. And the apologetic is both of them get a share, therefore they're equal. That's pretty much it. they don't see it being relevant that the male's share is double the females on nothing other than the basis of his sex. So, and I did read this entire book, very quick, easy book to read. Um, and yeah, it's so it's not like a full page kind of thing. I'll show you. Most of the book, the first like 2/3 of it, are like this. Comes with a bookmark. I like books like that. Most of it is like that, you know. So as you can see, there's a verse on top and then some writing underneath, right? Oh, I was pointing with the wrong finger. Yeah. Anyway, so getting to the Middle East, the problem, just moving to the next topic here. Getting to, damn, I gotta say that the fucking, thanks to Pragmatic for being the only one here, for always being here. I mean, but currently the only one here. But I'm saying for always being here, not always the only one here. You know, one of the and it does bring me back to why I've been absent as well, is I feel incompetent and I feel ignorant. I just feel like I don't know enough to talk about anything. And I I see so many people so passionately shouting these political opinions that they've barely informed in the past 2 or 3 months, right? Maybe 4 months. And they go out and shout and protest like they're fully confident in what and they know what they're doing. And I think with everything that's going on with the Israel and Palestine conflict, here's what I know for sure. Everybody that is right, or of the people that are right, assuming there are people who are right, they're right because they're morally lucky. They're not right because they reasoned themselves to the right side. People are being morally lucky. That is ultimately what is happening. And if everybody that you're around is on one side, you're probably going to be on that side. If everybody around you was pro-Palestine, it would be very unlikely that you would be pro-Israel, and vice versa. So I wanted to look into everything happening as much as I could myself. And what I think it's important to understand, every time I think about genocide, my go-to thought is the Holocaust. And if you think about it, there have been several genocides, and I don't want to minimize the Holocaust. There have been several genocides that have actually been, I mean, maybe as much as double, maybe more. There have been in genocides with numbers that far exceed what happened in the Holocaust. And yet the Holocaust is normally at least for me, it's the first thing I think of. You when I hear genocide, if you were to say what word do you think, and you said the word genocide, I would think Holocaust. That would be the next word that I think. And one thing that people should remember is that anti-Semitism isn't something that is only happened in the Holocaust. And almost every, I don't know if I should say almost every country, but a lot of countries in the world have an anti-Semitic history. And I was listening to a comedian slash podcaster talking about this, and he wasn't joking about it; he was being serious. But um, it's just when you consider, when he said he was traveling, and every time he was learning the history of a country, it just eventually you're like, and then this is the year they kicked all the Jews out. So you're like, you know, if you know people who are Jewish and you talk to people who are Jewish, like Jewish people are pretty much like warned their whole life that like anti-Semitism, everybody turning against them, this is a thing that has happened many times before, and you should be a little bit prepared because it could happen again. And that's just inductive reasoning. Why would you think it couldn't happen again when it's happened so many times before? And we are back at a time where people will see like a Star of David and start shouting anti-Semitic slurs. People doing graffiti on synagogues there's an increase in that. And there are incidents where Jews have staged anti-Semitic acts. So like that has happened. That is no reason to invalidate the fact that real acts of anti-Semitism happen very regularly and are on the rise. And the reality is there are a lot of, we can just use the word bigoted, hateful. There are a lot of very hateful people on both sides of this. There are people who just fucking hate Muslims. And there are people who really just fucking hate Jews. And I don't think being pro-Palestine means that you hate Jews. And I don't think being pro-Israel means that you hate Muslims. But you have to understand that whichever side you are on, there are bigots on your side. There are very hateful people on your side, no matter which side you're on. If you see a crowd of thousands of protesters that are pro-Palestine, there's no way there aren't anti-Semites amongst them. Now, what I do think is good is that pro-Palestinian protesters chanted, "We are not anti-Semitic. You all sound so pathetic," and it was most of them chanting it. So that I think was a very good move on their part to show that it's a majority of them that are not anti-Semitic. You know what? He said, "Hey, talk about me. I will talk about you. You're here. You are here. What if I'm on both sides?" I've actually tried to consider what is a coherent way of being on both sides. I'm on both sides in the sense that I'm on the sides of civilians, and I refuse to not acknowledge the fact that Hamas hides behind civilians. Hamas knows what it's doing, and Hamas knows that if it hides behind its civilians and it attacks Israel, that if Israel does something back, Hamas can say, "Look what you just did to these civilians," because they use civilians as human shields. So the pro-Israel perspective, this is something that I do understand. Is it's like, well, what are we supposed to do? Are we not allowed to defend ourselves? That's their perspective. Then the other perspective is, does genocide count as an act of self-defense? And there's a book that I've read on genocide. I have it somewhere. It doesn't matter. Um, it's called on genocidal intent, right? And the reality of genocidal intent is, first of all, people deny that they want to commit genocide. It's normally not what they want to do. But one of the five main justifications people give for genocide, one is normally, well, they want to take us out. So we have to do this in self-defense. So I just, after reading a genocide scholar write a book about, after reading his book about genocide, when I hear people ask, like, okay, what do you want to happen? What do you want the Israelis to do? Or what do you want the Palestinians to do? People aren't saying, "Oh, I want genocide to happen." But what people are doing are giving answers that are like precisely definitions of genocide. And on both sides, people are doing that. Let me see. Both sides are fucked up. At this point, it doesn't really matter which is worse. It just needs to fucking stop. Yeah, I don't know. I'm with that. And I know people who have been defensive of Hamas, and I'm like, and their argument, it's the same thing as like the people who think that you either have to support Biden or you have to support Trump, or either you have to be Democrat or Republican, right? It's like, as soon as you recognize that there's something wrong with either side, people think you're on the other side, right? Um, I just think about, to take children hostage. If you know somebody takes children hostage and then you're willing to defend them after the fact, I don't know that I could say that your reason for being outraged is morality. That's what it is. You're outraged because you think somebody's being immoral. I don't know. Because I really, once you get to the point where you're justifying kidnapping children and using them as hostages, I don't know. And then you see these videos of Hamas releasing hostages, and you see the hostages waving at Hamas as Hamas is saying, "Keep waving to them," right? And people are like, "Oh, look, Hamas." People are like really trying to defend Hamas like it's some fucking awesome, amazing group. And another set of facts that is interesting to look at together, right, is that Hamas is not in any way, shape, or form pro LGBT, to say the least. In Israel, you can openly be gay. You could even have a pride parade in Israel. And LGBT people around the world are almost universally supporting Palestine. And that I think is interesting. I don't think that should change it. It's just an interesting set of facts together. I understand that it's I don't know. It's a lot more nuanced than that, than just that set of facts. But I don't know. If I'm to say what side do I support, I would say Palestine, but not Hamas. But I don't have something against Israelis that are non-IDF. But I mean, when I see a fight, I heard somebody else say this, and I thought this is the best way to put it. When I see a fight, I'm asked, who do I think is in the wrong? My first question is who threw the first punch, right? Again, I probably don't need to say it again. I'm going to, because I fucking feel like it, because I narcissistically want to hear my own voice. Although I guess if I said something else, I would still hear my own voice. I don't know. I'm high. I forgot what I said. It doesn't matter. I'm reading comments and I fucking got distracted. My bad. People now equivocate being a victim being more moral. This is correct. People, who's the bigger victim? Where are there more victims, or who's the bigger victim? Oh yeah, okay. Let me go back. I remember what I said, and I did smoke some good weed before this, so that is genuinely what just happened. I just got high and forgot what I was going to say on the podcast. But when I see a fight, I'm wondering who threw the first punch, and I think it was I think Israel between the two. I mean, we have to understand that, like, the nation of Israel, as the nation that is established right now, that's not the same Israel that is referred to within the Bible. Geographically, yes, but it's not the same state, if you will, if that makes any sense. So I wanna do my share screen. Where's the fucking share screen option? Bro, did Stream they didn't get rid of that, did they? Oh no, it's just down here. All right, it's just been too long. All right. This is a video I think people should see. This is the kind of thing Israelis do, and Israel does.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is gonna steal it.
No one is allowed to steal it, يا عمي. Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the problem? What are you yelling at me? I didn't do this.
But
it's easy to yell at me, but I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
All right, and then hopefully I didn't share enough of that to get fucking copyrighted. I might, and then fight it and then appeal. But that's something that we should keep in mind, that kind of thing happens. That, if somebody just shows up on somebody else's land, and I understand, I do need to acknowledge this, that I'm saying this as a white American. So I'll note that here. But when you show up on somebody else's land, and you start kicking them off their land, they have every right to, at the very least, be, I don't know, quite pissed off at you and rebel, right? And if I was around back when Europeans were invading what is now the United States of America, I believe that I would have been morally opposed to it then. And for that reason, I think I should be consistent and be morally opposed to what Israel does to Palestinians. And not just taking the land, but the way that they treat them. And I will share my screen again on a different tab. And let me see. Let me pull this up. And I'm not going to play an entire documentary. All right, cool. I just want to make sure I was also on. All right, cool. The view count went up. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. And I do want to note, because there's a reason this is labeled. Al Jazeera is funded by a government, the Qatar Republic. So like that is something that you want to note. If a government has anything to do with funding any channel, you want to know about that, because that's part of how you look out for propaganda. But certain things you could see happening, like, for example, what we just saw with cell phone footage, right? So I think if you look critically at propaganda, you could look at aspects of what they portray, but then you need to ask, like, how much of it is real, how much of it is verifiable, that kind of stuff. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Settlements are fucked up for sure. Unfortunately, Israel is super small and there is no room for the population to grow unless they spread out. It's not justification for about it, just an explanation. Yeah, I'd agree. No, I would agree. It is an explanation and not a justification. And I don't know. Jews are told all over the world to go back to where they came from. And where is that according to them? I mean, that's kind of the thing, is the whole there's so much going on with this entire issue that I don't just want to blindly take a side, and I don't want to go down in history. Not that I'll be in a history book, because I don't fucking matter. But let's just say I was. I don't want to be in the history books as somebody that was supporting a genocide of one of these sides, because a lot of people who supported the Nazis were kind of, for lack of a better term, duped into it, tricked into it, manipulated into it. But they did support the Nazis at the end of the day, didn't they? And you know what? As somebody who voted for Biden, seeing Biden propose plans, what was it, 10 million or 12 million or billion he wanted to fucking send to Israel for a pack? No, we're not doing that. And seeing Biden is actually one of, if not the biggest defender of Israel. If you look at just Biden's history, like, people have brought this up, it's come to light because of recent events, right? That Biden has never condemned Israel, even when it's been like pretty much universal amongst everyone else. Biden has always been there to defend Israel. And well, there's a pretty complicated capitalistic reason for why that is. I mean, they're kind of like, it's because we're allies, and the location, and there being oil in that location and that sort of thing, right? Oh God, that's a big conversation though. That what I want to talk about though is, if you watch this, how Israeli apartheid destroyed my hometown. I want to show where there's I think this is it. No, I better plug my goddamn computer in. My bad, everybody. I didn't even realize it. It was so low. All right. So in these apartments, they have these. I'm just trying to look because, okay, yeah. So if you look up here, the Palestinians that live down here, because so many people who live near them will just like throw trash and rocks at them, right? Like it's not like it's only the IDF that oppresses them. Palestinians are an oppressed population in cities that they grew up in cities that they're like, dude, this is where my mom is from, and now we're not allowed to walk on that street. If you continue, I'm not going to play the whole document. They go through listings of different rights, and ultimately, there are streets where if you're a Palestinian, you can walk there, but you can't drive. And if you're Israeli, you can drive. So that's already obviously giving one ethnic group or a religious group. I mean, their nationality, different things are tied together. But you're literally saying, okay, well, this population, the Palestinians, they get these rights, less rights, and Israelis get these rights, more rights. That's apartheid. That's oppression. What's happening is oppression. The way that they're being treated is not okay. And if I just look at how people act, let's see. Well, we supported the creation of Israel because of its strategic military value. That's a good way of wording it. Its strategic military value. Oh, Israel oil as well. Yeah. I mean, those tie together. But yeah, I don't know. It's so with the pro Israel, pro Palestine thing, I just think people should stop and consider, like, I saw a group of people. They were at a college, and they were everyone. There was a pro Palestine protest going on, and there was a Jewish, what's it called, fraternity. There was a frat house, and these guys were just standing outside, not doing anything, just watching the protest happen. And people that were walking by came by and started flipping them off. And I do think it's worth considering that there were enough people in that crowd that it kept happening to them. And if I see a big crowd of people, okay, maybe if there's one anti-Semite, I shouldn't dismiss the whole crowd. Maybe not over 5. Okay, if you got a few thousand people and there are 5 anti-Semites, okay. 10, no. But at some point, you got to ask yourself, at what point do I say there's too much anti-Semitism involved in this movement for me to support it anymore? And that's why, I mean, I kind of like the thing about what Josh said. Can I just support both sides? Both sides or neither sides? I don't know. Fuck. I mean, bombing hospitals isn't something that anybody should stand by. Everybody should be very vehemently opposed to that. I guess I just think Israel started it and did more wrong between the two. So I'm more pro Palestine. So I am, in that sense, taking a stance, but I'm not pro Hamas because I'm not pro taking hostages. And I just see so much anti-Semitism amongst the pro Palestinian movement that I'm reluctant to want to be a part of that group, if that makes any sense. I don't want to accidentally condone genocide. Fucking, that might sound funny, but people do it. It happens. It's happened a lot of time. A lot of people have they accidentally support genocide. It happens. Yep, Israelis have been oppressing those surrounding them since they have been there, but also those surrounding them have wanted them wiped off the map since the same time. Yeah, exactly. So back to whether or not religion makes people more peaceful or structured or improves society. What was the point I made at the beginning about how I'm looking at what is the most religious land on earth? And is it the most peaceful land on earth? It's not. It's not. And again, while I don't think it's remotely possible that a God exists, I do think it could be remotely possible. Like I consider the possibility, I still do, that religion is beneficial. Not true, but beneficial. But every time I consider it, I end up thinking the same thing at the end of that consideration. No. I think at the very least, I could say it does more harm than good. How's that? Because it does do some good. People get comfort in not accepting the fact that death is like a real thing. I just don't know how healthy that is. But if you think about it, if they never have to find out that death is like real and they just die one day, it's not like they find out they're wrong. They don't. They just think they're going to go to heaven and they die and they don't go there. But they don't find out that they didn't go there because they die. So, like, if you think about it, it's kind of like, I don't fucking know, man. Muslims around them would have oppressed the Jews if they had the backing of the West instead. So yeah, they're pretty much the same in my eyes. Yeah, exactly. Something people need to take into consideration is like, when you consider who's worse, you should also consider who's more capable, right? You could argue that Hitler was worse than Genghis Khan, but did Genghis Khan have the military capacity that Hitler did? Look at their ideas. Maybe you wouldn't think Hitler was worse than Genghis Khan. Maybe you would think Genghis Khan was worse. Maybe Hitler killed more people. But, I mean, think about that. I don't know. I wanted to come into this stream just super prepared and just nothing but straight thought, straight thought, straight thought, straight thought. That's why I didn't even prepare. But the thing about religion entirely is it just leaves me in this place of just not even knowing where I'm at, not even knowing what to say, not understanding how people still buy into the same bullshit that's been sold for so long, not understanding how people can, like, here's the thing is all three Abrahamic religions do rely on the Torah because the Quran refers to the Torah. The Torah, Christianity, the Old Testament, the New Testament relies on the Old Testament. The Torah is one of the foundations of Christianity, though it's really the foundation of Islam, right? The Torah, for those who don't know, would be the same thing as the 5 books of Moses. The 5 books of Moses are the first 5 books in the Old Testament. Here are some fun facts about the Torah, the 2 fun facts. So Moses is supposed to be the author of the Torah, and it says in the Torah that Moses is the most humble man that ever lived. And Moses dies in the Torah. And it keeps fucking going. No bullshit. Read it. Well, I'm not going to say no bullshit. No bullshit that happens in the book. Bullshit that happened. Moses didn't actually exist. Jesus did. Moses didn't. I know some of the anti-Jesus existing people are going to be like, you know. I just, the thing is, I need somebody to give me like, if somebody could give me like their epistemic basis for whether or not a historic figure existed or not, and then tell me why one figure meets it and why Jesus doesn't, I'd be more persuaded. Literally not one mythicist has done that for me once. A lot of them are just like, well, there are people who are academics who think that. And I'm like, yeah, but it's also like a fringe view in that field. And normally if somebody has like, oh, you can find a biologist that doesn't believe in evolution. Who gives a fuck? Like, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't, I don't know. How people deny evolution is another thing. It's just that in the Torah, okay, so the Torah, Genesis is one of the most interesting fucking things I've ever read in my life. And there's definitely nothing that I've read, reread over again as many times as I have with Genesis. Nothing. Because there's so many holes in the story that every time I read it, there's something that fucks with me that is a hole in the plot that I somehow didn't notice before. And you go, fuck, I've read it so many times. How did I not figure this out? How did I not see this was here, right? But what people need to understand the Torah is the Torah gives us the claim that mankind came into existence the first week of Earth, right? Earth comes into existence, man comes into existence. That happens in the same week. Okay, already this isn't perfect. Already this can't be the word of God. And I have Christians. A new approach is to say that the Bible doesn't have to be perfect to be true. I would argue that if somebody knew everything, they wouldn't be wrong about anything. And I could give a more complex syllogism in a paper. I can do, you know, I'm just going to put it at that. Just be brute about it right now. Be on the blunt fucking statement. That's just how it is. If you knew everything, you wouldn't be wrong about shit. And then they try to argue that, well, if he's talking to flawed creatures, he would have to use well, God can't lie. It says in the Bible that God can't lie. Yes, the guy that can do anything can't do this thing. Moving that part aside. There's another contradiction. Like, I have to interrupt myself with other contradictions before I could even tell you the one that I'm thinking of. Right? And it's so you have 2,000 years between Adam. So Adam, the first man that ever lived, right? You have 2,000 years between Adam and Abraham. Then you have 2,000 years between Abraham and Jesus. Then 2,000 years from Jesus to now. 6,000 year earth, right? And earth isn't 6,000 years old. It's 4.5 billion years old. That's it. So the Torah gives an account for the age of the earth that we know is wrong. The Torah gives an account for how long after earth coming to be mankind came to be, and it's wrong. It's fucking wrong. So if you want to make this argument of like God had to talk through flawed creatures, I need to have a full conversation with somebody who takes that approach. And I do believe somebody who takes that approach will hear this live stream. I don't know it, but I believe it. Have faith. Because even though your reasoning is flawed, where did you get your reasoning from? God. God gave it to you. So God knows how to convince you. He's even if he didn't give it to you, he's omniscient. Omniscient, omnipotent. Knows what it would take to convince you. And if he's omnipotent, he can do whatever that is. I've said it so many times. I can word it differently somehow, but it's just the point that doesn't go away. That doesn't stop being true. That's the thing. Sometimes you have to repeat yourself because what you're saying is a counter argument to an argument people just keep making, or it's a rebuttal to a claim that you just have to keep falsifying the same thing. Imagine if somebody told you 2 + 2 was 5, and you took 2 sets of 2 and put them together and showed them that it's 4, and they just look you in the eyes and tell you that it's 5. They just say it. You go look. They go, well, fucking, who knows better, the all-knowing creator of the universe or you? Me, evidently. If he says it's 5 and I say it's 4, it's fucking 4. If that's, look, 2 and 2 is 4. I shouldn't have to, like, and that's actually a quote from a Christian. He says, if I were to read in the Bible somewhere that it said 2 + 2 = 5, I would believe it, accept it, and I'd go home and try to figure out how it was true. Not all Christians are that bad, but damn, you can't reason with somebody like that. All of these religions are problematic for multiple different reasons. And it's hardest to criticize Judaism because Jews have been the victims of the Holocaust. So any criticism that you have of Judaism is necessarily going to be something that anti-Semites also think. So this is another example of, I don't agree with the criticism or argument of people say, you're repeating fill in the blank talking points. Oh, that's a blank talking point. I don't think that counts as an argument for anything. Because a fact is a fact, regardless of who uses it as a premise for what they conclude. Two people could have way different conclusions, but they share a premise. They share belief in a premise. Very different other premises, but one premise in common, right? So if I say something about Judaism, you can say, hey, that's an anti-Semitic talking point. But just because anti-Semites say that, and I said it, doesn't mean I'm on the same side as them. It's just a premise that I'm agreeing with that they also believe in. But people are a lot more, again, not unnuanced. What's the opposite of nuance? People have a binary way of thinking. Are you this or are you that? But now a lot of people who, I don't know, 3 months ago would have jumped to calling anybody anti-Semitic for saying anything about Judaism are now like ignoring actual anti-Semitism because it's on their side and they can't criticize their own side. We live in such a fucked up world, it's too hard to comment on. But these religions are all problematic because you have Judaism, which says that God has a chosen people, that has a chosen race. Well, I don't believe in God. So if you tell me that there's a, that God exists and that God likes you more than me, I could just laugh it off and be like, all right, whatever, because I don't believe in God. But I can kind of see how that would really piss somebody off if they believe in God. Yeah. If you're black and you believe in God, and I come up to you and I tell you that God has a chosen people and it's white people, probably gonna fucking piss you off, right? I would imagine I wouldn't understand if it didn't. Wouldn't understand if it didn't. So that is a belief of Judaism. You can convert to Judaism in the sense that you can take on their principles of belief, but they do believe that there is a chosen race. Oh yeah, they believe in race, something that biologists disproved as long ago as the 60s. But most people still believe in. There's a lot of things that have been disproven that people still believe in. Yeah, race being another one of them. There are races in the Bible and in the Quran. We could argue it's a mistranslation of ethnicities, which are something that do exist. You try to play devil's advocate here, but at the end of the day, it says there are races and it says God has a chosen race. So there's a problematic view of Judaism that is just intrinsically going to cause problems with other religious groups. Because guess what? Other people might not think that you're God's chosen people, and you telling them that you are, that's gonna ruffle some feathers, to say the least. Then you have Christianity, which says to go spread it by the sword. So Christianity just gives the command to go spread your religion as much as you can. And of course, you have the Israelites, killing Midianite families and raping their children and obviously converting them to Christianity after doing so. You have, obviously slave masters converting their slaves to Christianity, this sort of thing happening, right? Christianity telling its slaves to be obedient to their masters. You have like Christianity is going to be problematic because it says to evangelize. And yes, other people, like religious people, don't want you to go over because evangelize is really just a word that means proselytize Christianity. That's all it really means. Evangelize, somebody convince me otherwise. I'm open to being wrong about this. If somebody could articulate how. Evangelize just means proselytize Christianity. That should be the dictionary definition. Proselytizing the gospel. There you go. We'll let you put the words the gospel in the definition if you use the word proselytize, because that's all it is, right? And so, yep, that's definitely going to cause problems with people. But then guess what? The Christians who go to other parts of the world invade and then try to make their culture the dominant culture in that part of the world, they then get to call any retaliation against them persecution. And now they're victims. And religion is the opium of the oppressed for a reason. It teaches that the oppressed are the loved. And there's a reason why they put a lot of emphasis on it being more difficult for rich people to go to heaven than for poor people to go to heaven, right? Although I guess try telling one of these fucking megachurch preachers that, huh? I wonder if anybody in there has read the Bible. If you could read the Bible and follow those guys, I don't know what the fuck you thought anything about what Jesus said or thought or did. It's like give to the poor. No, they take from the poor. That's what they fucking do. Let's not rape children. Let's not do that, right? It says to do it in the Bible. So the Bible, I don't know. So Christianity is problematic. Islam says that it is the last and final. I said last and final. Those both mean the same thing, and now I feel stupid. True and final. There we go. Message of God. This is it, right? And something that I also want to quote from a hadith out of this book was, and this is Islamic scripture. The Quran is not the only, the hadith, the sunnah, like it's all okay. Okay. I will quote, understand this. The best deeds is love for Allah's sake and hatred for Allah's sake. He who loves for Allah's sake and hates for Allah's sake and gives for Allah's sake and withholds for Allah's sake has perfect faith. Now, again, to hate for Allah's sake. If I go back, I don't know. It says it more than once, actually, but that's the part where it really matters. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So it says, love what Allah loves, hate what Allah hates in another verse. So to love for Allah's sake, hate for Allah's sake. Well, if you look at how many times the Quran is the word of Allah, right? How many times the Quran condemns non-believers of Islam, you would understand how Islam is going to, I mean, it just seems like a religion that would intrinsically cause people to have horrible views about people who don't believe in Islam and make them pretty much bigoted toward everyone who's not a member of their group. So all three of these religions are just intrinsically problematic. And as long as they're going to coexist, I'm going to tell you this much, they're not going to only coexist peacefully. You will have examples of them coexisting peacefully, but you will never only have that. And I guess you could argue that, you know, with religion or without religion, people are still going to fight. But only with these organized religions do you have these particular conflicts that consist of these great numbers of people, as they have been for the reasons that you do. Religion, it's overall, it's not beneficial to society. It has some pros and a lot of cons. And we can look at other religions, but with respect to these three, they're dangerous, all of them. And it's easy to say that in a sentence because I put them all together. But if I just say Judaism is dangerous, imagine if I was in the break room talking to a coworker. You, if you're my coworker, you and me were talking in the break room. Yeah, Judaism is dangerous, and a bunch of people overhear that. What do you think people are going to think about me? Oh, that's probably some guy with a nuanced opinion, and I probably don't know anything about how he feels about Jews. Is that what they're going to think? Are they going to not think anything of it at all? Or are they going to think, fuck, is that guy going on like a full-on hate rant right now? Like, that guy hates Jews. It's going to be worse soon because I'm going to look like a skinhead because I got that Jada Pinkett syndrome. And what I mean by that is I'm going bald. Balding hit me at 25. Goddamn. Fuck. That stress will get you. Gets all of us. Cancel culture. I'm guessing he meant to say whack. Cancel culture is WAD. But cancel culture is WAD. I don't know. This hasn't been an entirely active stream, but I'm gonna post the link and see if anybody wants to hop in. Let me see. Okay, StreamYard link is in the chat if anybody wants to hop in for discussion. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep it going for a few more minutes like I normally do. And yeah, I'm gonna get back to streaming, but you know, part of it is I have to keep reading. That's part of the thing is I haven't been live streaming and I've been absent because I feel incompetent, because I feel ignorant. And if I'm ignorant, okay, there's a cure for that. Learning, right? So I just read and 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 read. And you know that saying about how the more you see, the less you know. It's a little bit like that. You just kind of start realizing how much there is for you to fucking never have the time to know. Not just how much there is for you to know, how much there is out there that you'll never even fucking know. Hey, thanks for tuning in. So all I could do is keep reading up, but I've read the entire Quran, and I did feel it was very mentioned to say that, because for me it was a pretty big revelation that I was expecting the Quran to say that Aisha, her name, that she was 6 years old, and then describe a marriage with her. And there was all this stuff that did happen, but is actually in hadiths later on after the Quran that I thought I was going to see in the Quran, that I'm glad that I now know are not actually in the Quran. And it's important to be empathetic toward other people, and to know that not everybody who's Muslim is thinking that Muhammad was a pedophile. Although he was, and I've said that, so I don't know. They don't. It says to hate what Allah hates, and Allah hates people who disrespect Muhammad. So you could say that Islam teaches you to hate me. And the other interesting thing is, if you talk to most Muslims about radical Islam, this is what they will tell you. If they don't say precisely this, they will say something to the effect of it. We do not accept them as Muslims because they teach hate. Okay, but the verse I just read to you about loving what Allah loves, hating what Allah hates, how is it worded? Yeah, it's one of the greatest deeds. It's to love for the sake of Allah and to hate for the sake of Allah. So, yes, Islam teaches hate. It specifically teaches hate. So, it's a hateful ideology at the end of the day. And I want to coexist peacefully with my Muslim friends and coworkers and neighbors, and want to get along with everybody. This is where I get a little bit confused, and I'm stuck without a solution. This is one of the reasons sometimes it's best just not to talk about religion with people. I know it's like, okay, we focus so much on not talking about religion on politics. What if we tried to just work on talking about them civilly? I do think we should try to work on that. We should also acknowledge that a lot of people can't have a civil conversation about religion. A lot of people can't have a civil conversation about politics. There are a lot of people that you could get along with perfectly fine if you just never talk about this one topic. And what I know about a lot of Muslims is that if I don't talk about their prophet, and I don't talk about their, ultimately, what I think about their religion, and I just don't say anything disrespectful, I can get along with them. But if I start bringing up the Prophet Muhammad, we're gonna have some differences, irreconcilable differences, no matter what their position is, because as far as they're concerned, I'm disrespecting their prophet, and that is not something they will forgive. That is a serious thing for them. So I just don't want to be stuck in a bubble where I'm like, hateful toward people. And I want to experience knowing people of every culture. And if I could, I don't think this is possible at all. If I could speak every language, that would be amazing. I think the world record was over 80 languages. It was fucking insane. I can't even name like 20. But I'm gonna fucking die one day. And I acknowledge that because I don't believe in an afterlife. And before I die, I want to get to see the different cultures of the world and different people in the world. And part of that is getting to know and understand people's religious beliefs and how their religions have impacted their cultures, and what you should or shouldn't do around people who have certain beliefs. Because, I mean, if you want to go somewhere where everyone wears a full-on burqa, if you're a woman, you can't go there and dress like a typical Westerner. Some country, they have differences in law. Some it'll be just a hijab. The burqa covers everything except like just the eyes, right? The hijab is more just the hair cover. So let me see. Most of us are surrounded by friends and family that are theists, and we therefore carefully choose our time to discuss our differences. Often we simply avoid it. That's true. There are also a lot of people that, for their own family, for nothing other than religious reasons. They don't talk anymore. It happens. I have family that I don't talk to anymore, but it doesn't have anything to do with religion. And yeah, fear of upsetting them. And this is the thing, is like, I don't want to upset them. And if somebody's Muslim, and this is why I try to just not bring up religion, is like, I want to get to know them and coexist with them and work with them and hang out, smoke weed with them. People could try to say that Islam would prohibit weed, but you know what? There's nothing in the Quran that says anything about marijuana. It's never referred to once. And in the Quran that I have, it actually only mentions, it doesn't use the word alcohol. It says wine. So if you wanted to be pedantic, one could argue this would be anachronistic. I think it would be. You could say, well, actually, it doesn't say anything about whiskey because it only says something about wine in here. But I think if you were to be more intellectually honest, you could say, well, clearly there's a reason why wine was being forbidden, and the reason would most likely be the alcohol content. So this was probably saying we should forbid alcohol, or maybe wine was the only type of alcohol they knew of, right? But usually more productive to build bridges on what you share in common and demonstrate that atheists could be moral, decent, etc. Said, but Shane, and mass diversity never works. It actually divides. Well, they're already divided to begin with. So before they come to the same place, right? But in some ways I would agree, in some ways I don't, because I mean, I'm not going to say that like Jews and Muslims can't peacefully coexist. They can. But as I said earlier, they can't only peacefully coexist. And if you have a population that's mostly Muslim and you have a Hindu population there, or vice versa, you're probably going to have some oppression going on. So diversity is necessary. I believe that, but I've never seen en masse. But what does en masse diversity mean? Because I would imagine this would refer to, I mean, I'm just seeing the word mass, so I'm just thinking large quantities, right? I think like diversity is a good thing. You could argue that, for example, immigration changing diversity should be done with thought, though, because, for example, if you have a country where everybody's homophobic, right? Because it's an Islamic country and that's what their culture teaches. If you move thousands of immigrants from that country to Austin, Texas, there's going to be a bit of a cultural divide because there are a lot of rainbows out here, and there's going to be some problems between people. Or let's just say you take in 10,000 Palestinian refugees and 10,000 Israeli refugees. If you take those refugees in the same city, that's going to cause some problems because they don't agree. And so, yeah, so I think this is what he was talking about, and I would actually agree with this. I'm not opposed to diversity, and I think I have no right to be against immigration, even if I was. And I'm not against immigration. I actually, personalmente, yo quiero más latinos aquí en los Estados Unidos. I want more. I can't get enough Hispanic culture. Like sometimes I'll be going where like all the Hispanic stores and everything are, and I'm like, fuck, this street is too short. Like I wish this area was bigger because there's like not enough taco trucks or something. You know what I mean? There's not enough variety of music. There's no cumbia. I hear reggaeton over there, but I don't know. I like diversity. That's one thing I love about Austin, Texas, is like we have all these different people here from all over the world, right? Diversity and mass sounds more. Well, now I'm going to just have to look up what this means, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I knew what the fuck this phrase meant. Some people will do that, and I can't say I've never done it where you hear a word, you just pretend you know what it meant. You keep going on. I'm not going to do that today, though. More like concentration of one culture, which is the opposite. Well, he said en masse diversity. So how would that be? Look at UK Muslims have own streets, and in Australia, and normal citizens aren't allowed in them. You know what? I've heard that, and I wasn't sure that was. Are there is it actually? I knew there were Muslim streets, but other citizens aren't allowed in those streets. I gotta hold on. I gotta live. I gotta. That's the kind of thing that I have to look up before I, you know, before I just believe. So I'm gonna look that up real quickly. Let's see. Citizens not allowed on Muslim streets. That's what I'm looking at. I should share screen. Could you imagine if I called myself Shane the Skeptic and I didn't question this, though? Like, if I just started believing this? Let's see. No, this. Trump's Muslim ban. Oh, he's trying to bring that back too. For banning the wearing of it. Yeah, Muslim ban. That's Trump's Muslim ban. I'm not seeing anything about that, and I feel like it would be easy to find information about that if that was true, though. Man, I gotta say, I think you giving us a false one on that. I'm rating this claim false. I'm rating this claim most likely to be false because here's the thing. This is one thing you should do when you hear a claim is, what would I expect to follow from this if this was true? And is that the case? And if the answer is no, you should ask, well, why not? And I really think it's because this claim is bullshit. So that's because I will mention, I stated earlier, if you're saying that a group of people should not have the right to enter certain streets, like, that's no different from like white people saying, well, this is a white neighborhood, black people can't come through here. Like, look on YouTube's. You can comment on this video giving me some links, because I mean, I'm not going to say you can't get information from YouTube. I do this channel. I put information out into the ether via YouTube. But again, like, I could look up if something is cell phone footage, I'll go, okay, this is cell phone footage. I can see this is legit. Loads of Muslims cause problems in the UK. Well, I mean, people cause problems, and I mean, I wouldn't want to go to putting it on the Muslims that, like, oh, they all just cause problems. I feel like that's the way that you're kind of going with it. I mean, again, I'm critical of Islam, and I'm acknowledging what the culture does to its, the people that believe in it and everything. So, like, I'm not somebody who's not willing to accept facts that other people don't want to hear. I got to tell you, though, the thing is, you're starting to say this racist people love frogs. I don't know why, but they love them. And you got a frog. That doesn't prove anything. I'm just saying. I infiltrate white supremacist groups, and you know what I see? They always share memes with, I think it's called Pepe Frog. Pepe Frog. Oh my God, they love that thing. All like 90% of their memes probably consist of that fucking frog. Are you racist? Just tell me. Or according to you, are you racist? They want Sharia law installed. It is their main goal. It's not all of their main goal, though. There are Muslims who that's their main goal. So, like, the Taliban, that's their goal. Definitely. What was Osama bin Laden's goal? Definitely that. You read Osama bin Laden's letter to America, that was his law. That was his goal. I think this is a good, teenagers cause more problems than Muslims. We could take the words in the UK out of it. Hold on. Let's just leave because that's just true everywhere. Teenagers cause more problems than Muslims. Love Pepe. You are fucking racist. I knew it. He said, okay. Well, all right, I'll take your word for it. There are certain things that make me question if somebody's racist, and if they like Pepe the Frog, I immediately start thinking it's probably racist. Yeah, if anybody doesn't know that, like, this is just coming from not experience as a former white. I've never been a white supremacist, but I infiltrate their groups, and I fucking see that they love that frog. I need to get off on. I'm just so fascinated by their love for that frog. Why? It's drawn with like Microsoft Paint. Forward. Do they want Sharia law though? I mean, yeah, a lot of them do. Yeah, and religion does teach people that. And the thing is, they would vote according to that. But like, I just feel like most of the Muslims that I know wouldn't vote for that. But I guess like who you know isn't represent. I live in the West. I live in Texas. The Muslims that I know in Austin, Texas, aren't going to be representative of all Muslims in the world, obviously, right? Like if I can only know so many, and of course I know a lot of people from Algeria, and I know someone from Jordan. I know people from, I don't know people from different places, Pakistan, but most of them, here's an interesting thing. Most of them drink. They never eat pork though. So like, I'm going to ignore that. So think about it. But between these two sins, pork isn't tempting enough for them to give in and sin. But alcohol, like they can make do with, right? And I don't ever, if I drink with them, go, well, isn't that against your religion? Like, leave people the fuck alone. You know what I mean? Like, if you are like, oh, ice cream's really bad for you, you shouldn't eat it, and then you eat ice cream, you don't want to be caught out for being a hypocrite. Yeah, it's bad for you, but it's fucking delicious. Just let me enjoy my ice cream. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't hurt nobody eating the bacon. Yeah, their top pork is disgusting and dirty. Alcohol is just wrong. Yes, and also I would say the Quran only one time says anything about alcohol, and again, in this translation, it uses the word wine. I lost count of how many times it says not to eat pork, though. It makes it very clear. So you could see how, if in Islam, there are different rules. If one rule has been stated once in the Quran and another rule was stated multiple times, you could say, okay, that one's probably more important. They saw more importance in their followers not forgetting this part, which is weird because alcohol, you can give way more justifications for why you don't want a population consuming alcohol than why a population shouldn't be eating pork. Oh, I guess that's today, though, because back then, pork would have been a lot more dangerous. Like Chris Rock talked about that in a skit. People should look that up. I don't want to give away the skit. It's a good one. But, like, times have changed. Now, a pork chop is your friend. But, yeah, no, pork is, yeah. Well, they're both sins, but yes, I guess you're right. Like pork, they think is dirty and disgusting. And one of my Muslim friends, and he was when he started talking to me about pigs, I could just like sense this actual like this repulse. I don't know. Part of me found it kind of funny. I actually think it's weird when people talk about giving up meat or giving up pork. Like, well, what about bacon? If you're gonna defend like making an animal suffer its whole life for the sake of your taste buds, pastor, like, have you not had pastor? Like pastor, I could justify torturing everybody for pastor, but bacon, it's all right. Like, it's not bad. I don't dislike bacon. I just like pastor fucking exists. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is the kind of point I was getting to. Josh, you has to be right on this. Alcohol was safer to drink than water. Pork was dangerous. So I'm thinking, yeah, alcohol is more dangerous than pork. Well, not back then. Okay, not back then. The dude comments on the Iowa State Capitol display with the Satanic Temple holiday display. Wait, what? Oh, okay. Asking me for comments. Comments on the Iowa State Capitol display. I didn't hear about that. Well, I guess this is the kind of activism that the Satanic Temple does that I think gets their point across. Religious symbols shouldn't be displayed on state symbols, right? State capitals shouldn't have religious symbols on them. But all these exceptions are made for Christianity. So if you're going to allow at the Austin State Capitol, there's a 10 Commandments monument. What the fuck is that doing there? So if you guys want to take the Satanic Temple off of the Iowa State Capitol, I say let's do that the same day we get rid of the 10 Commandments monument. But the reason for getting rid of the Satanic Temple applies to Christianity too. They do it every year. Good activism. Yeah. Oh, what's that, Christians? You don't like seeing that on the state capitol? Yeah. It's how we feel when you keep shoving Jesus's cock down everybody's throat. Just like we're done with this. We're done. Evangelicals are having a fit. I'm not gonna lie, dude. There are times where sometimes I just watch evangelicals like getting interviewed about satanic anything. Like for fun. I don't know. Like I sometimes I feel bad about doing it because I know like they think this shit is real. And it's one of the reasons I'm kind of reluctant to like wear anything that's like satanic or some shit like that. Cause I'm like or be a Satanist or anything. Cause like it's bad enough as an atheist that like if people think you don't believe in God, oh now they think you worship the devil, that you then give them some further reason to think that. That's kind of my reluctance. I don't want to do that. But I what the Satanic Temple does and their political activism, I mean, I'm with them on it. I read a comment that I kind of want to touch on though. But remember what I said earlier about talking points? I do kind of agree with your comment in the context that you made it though. But only in the context that you made it. I don't know. I just feel like when people say, "Oh, you're making an X talking point," I mean, a hateful person could agree with a talking point. That doesn't mean everyone who agrees with that talking point is. I mean, I don't hate Muslims, but there are things about Islam that I think are worthy of criticism. That if you say you are making I'm sorry, what's the word? Islamophobic talking points. So like here's an example, and I appreciate you tuning in, commenting. So have a great night. Here's an example of what I'm talking about though. If you are an atheist, right, and you say Muhammad was a pedophile, one could say that you're saying a white supremacist talking point because white supremacists do bring up Muhammad being a pedophile. Like they do a lot. So should we as atheists not criticize Islam for worshiping a pedophile because white supremacists are also condemning Islam for that? I mean, that's the thing about the like talking points argument, right? And it's another reason why you got to be careful about what you say about religion in public, I guess. I like how he says frogs are my fave, just not Pepe. Okay, at least I know not all frog lovers are racist. Because I'm not even fucking with you. Somebody likes frogs. I'm like, okay. Did you guys know turtles are like kind of racist? Like they did this experiment. Well, yeah, you probably think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. The turtles are racist. I don't have time to explain why. Okay. Well, their predators have all been black. Like almost everything that's come for them, right? And so they evolved to be more afraid of that color. And like they did this experiment where they would have white shoes lined up and they put a black piece of tape on one of the shoes. If the turtle walks by the white shoes, like it's perfectly fine. Doesn't As soon as the turtle sees the black one, it just starts fucking headbutting it and attacking it. And I shouldn't laugh because it shouldn't be funny. But somehow the fact that turtles are racist is kind of funny. Like fuck turtles. And I remember seeing the video and a bunch of the comments were black people saying like, man, I'm gonna have me some fucking turtle soup today. Like that's a fucking disturbing fact, I guess, to learn. And you know what? There's a part of me that feels like I should apologize for bringing that up, but it is a fact. Turtles are racist. Turtles attack anything black. It doesn't have to be a shoe. It could be anything. Yeah. Anyway, I've been going on about the fact that turtles are racist for way too long. But view count goes up when I run out of shit to say. Why does that always have to happen? Okay, I won't be ending the stream because I actually have people here. But I just want to say assalamu alaikum to any Muslims that are here today. That's not sarcastic. I do mean that authentically. I do want to have not only people who agree with me in the chat, and I want people to feel comfortable saying things that are questionable in public. And if they have to hide behind frogs, let them. But if we're talking about religion, if you want to talk about Islam or Judaism, the reality is you can't do it without saying things that bigots say. So because you're going to be saying things that bigots also say, people will think you're a bigot if you say them publicly. Not everybody. They're going to be like, I do know Muslims who understand my stance on Islam that know that I'm not Islamophobic. But if I go to work and I start talking out loud about what I think about Islam and my Muslim coworkers hear me, I would imagine all of them would think that I was Islamophobic. So, people are idiots. People don't, it's not just the people are idiots, but that is I don't know. Like I said, religion it's such a nuanced problem because we talk about, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, all of them are just intrinsically problematic and controversial, especially towards one another, that you just have to consider that with respect to mass and mass migration. Was that where we used earlier? Yeah. You have to be critical of how that kind of thing is done. Let me see. Woke buzzword like bigot. I would agree that bigot is an overused word to the point where when somebody uses it, I question. Well, so the thing is this. If somebody calls everybody a bigot all the time, then I don't believe them. And I just think, okay, you're just one of those people that uses that word for anybody that fucking thinks anything that you don't also think. But if somebody doesn't use the word bigot for everybody that disagrees with them, and they tell me that somebody's a bigot, I'm more likely to believe them, right? So like the kind of person that doesn't call everybody racist or isn't looking for an excuse to do so, if they tell me somebody's racist, I'm like going to take them more seriously on it than I am somebody who just kind of seems to throw that accusation out every time somebody of a different color disagrees, right? I don't know. I'm just like taking criticizing what was said, just because that's the content that I have to think about. Let me see. Oh, yeah, here we go. So many people think all atheists are Satanists. There are a lot of people that if you tell them you're an atheist, their follow-up is like, so that means you worship the devil? Like, that's just, and it makes you not want to tell them you're an atheist. They're like the Quran. It's like, if I know somebody likes me, but I know as soon as they think I'm an atheist, they're not going to like me anymore. And they ask, are you an atheist? There's this part of me, this small part of me that wants to lie, that wants to pretend. Oh, this cute Muslim girl at work asked me if I was Muslim. And I was like, oh, fuck. I could start a new life. Because I could then convert my current girlfriend to Islam and then I could have more than one. I gotta have 2 wives. And I joked with my girlfriend about that. And I was like, and you're going to have to cover your hair. Nah. Not doing it. So, I don't know. On the final notes of this, though, because I'm going to start getting to wrapping this stream up. I just want to say that all I know is I don't want to be on the side of people that are chanting for genocide. And with the Palestine and Israel conflict, both sides of that conflict have people making those chants. So I'm reluctant to mindlessly just take an agreement and shout something or chant something amongst people. But if I have time to express the nuance of my views as I do on this channel, then I'm willing to do so. And that's what I've done today. I have nothing against anybody who's Muslim, anybody who's Jewish, anybody who's Christian, on the basis of their religious beliefs. I don't think that religion should ever be used as a reason to justify not allowing somebody to move to this country, to any country. I think people should have the right to migrate. And I especially should support the right to migrate to the United States legally because of the fact that we are a country of immigrants, right? But I also don't want to go with the population that mindlessly fears saying anything critical about major movements when the criticism is reasonable and is the kind of thing that most people would probably think. So, on that note, I'm going to be closing out. But yeah, as always, whether you're theist, atheist, secular, or religious, I thank you, as always, for tuning into my channel to watch my content. And I can't tell you when the next time I'll be live streaming is, but I can tell you that I'm trying to get better at doing it more often. And it's been forever. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm back, at least for now. Be safe, everybody.